One of Australia's most prominent business leaders has raised the possibility of increasing the Medicare levy to keep funding the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the controversial program to improve the lives of people with disabilities. Tony Shepherd is a former head of the Business Council of Australia and a former head of the Commission of Audit, which has previously reported to the federal government on NDIS costs. He has told Sky News that the NDIS is incredibly important, but the federal budget is not a magic pudding and the money spent on the scheme has to be replenished somehow. Mr Shepherd was speaking exclusively to Sky News as part of our investigation into the latest cost blowout of the NDIS scheme, which is expected to cost around $100 billion a year in the next decade, dwarfing the annual budgets for defence, Medicare and aged pensions. Here's Jonathan Lee, Sky News investigations reporter, with part one of the story.
The money is never ending. So if it becomes misspent, the person just goes back and asks for some more.
If it costs a lot of money, so be it.
We have to have a look at what we can afford.
The problem with this is when you treat it like a welfare scheme, it becomes a welfare scheme.
There is a big discussion to be had here for the nation.
It was 2008, and intent on unbottling big ideas, then Prime Minister Kevin Rudd convened the 2020 summit.
Today we are throwing open the windows of our democracy to let a bit of fresh air in.
This weekend is a hunting licence for new ideas.
The biggest outcome is what we now call the National Disability Insurance Scheme, intended to provide cost-effective, tailored, taxpayer-funded support for those with significant disabilities. But as you will see, with little certainty as to where the line would be drawn. Shaped by Bill Shorten and later legislated by Julia Gillard, just weeks before her party toppled her as PM.
Today, we inscribe it in our nation's finances. The people who have gathered here today from around the country to witness this debate know what this means.
None more so than John Walsh. As the Associate Commissioner of the 2011 Productivity Report, it was in part his recommendations the NDIS was to be based on, a dream of a scheme which he sadly says is now failing families.
It's failed to build the capacity of people with disability to make full use of their potential, and it's failed to make the best use of the limited funding available.
He's critical because
the scheme that was implemented and legislated was a fundamentally different scheme from what was recommended by the Productivity Commission.
The report stated there should be a new national scheme aiming to better link the community and people with disabilities, noting the benefits of the scheme would significantly outweigh the costs, making it cost neutral. That financial figure was estimated at roughly $14 billion annually, a manageable amount for a rich country. But fast forward to the latest budget and the scheme will this year cost taxpayers more than $35 billion. Treasury expects that figure will grow at a staggering 13.8% annually over the next decade, meaning the cost of the NDIS will surpass not only the defence budget but also Medicare. It's also projected to eclipse the nation's most expensive program, the seniors' pension, putting it on track in a decade to annually cost near $100 billion.
In some ways it's been very good for lots of people, but I don't think it is sustainable in its current form, and it has not served many people well.
This is taxpayer money, and this is serious taxpayer money.
Amongst his many roles, Anthony Shepherd is the current chairman of the GWS Giants and Venues New South Wales. As the former chair of the National Commission of Audit, he reported on the NDIS to government.
When we looked at it, the projection was by about now it would be $23 billion a year, and it's obviously going to be a lot higher.
He believes there's now a case to look at increasing the Medicare levy to pay for the scheme, arguing it will become impossible for any government to balance the budget.
It is an incredibly important scheme, but the thing is it has to be controlled and it has to be reasonable. And at the end of the day, of course, it's got to be affordable. The government budget is not a magic pudding. You just can't keep taking out of it without replenishing it.
Oh my God! Oh, what?
Just look at his reaction. Look at that.
Oh, my cow! Oh, what?
Robert Deeves has the sort of energy you dream of. The 36-year-old was born with Down syndrome. His therapy classes have become a beloved part of his day.
I like it. So cool.
Understandably, his parents grow tired of the debate around costs.
They're huge numbers, aren't they? Huge numbers, but it's a shame that people continue to have a disability. The numbers sound huge, but the needs are huge as well. And the money's got to come from somewhere.
It's a position shared by advocates.
It's funny, isn't it? And have you ever heard anybody have this conversation about Medicare? I don't know how much Medicare costs, you know, so most Australians don't, because we don't have a discussion about people getting reasonable and necessary support. If you have cancer, then you get treated for cancer in this country.
For all the money, the latest NDIS quarterly report details an underperforming and swelling scheme. Far from the 410,000 participants originally estimated in 2011, numbers have ballooned to 555,000 participants this year, with rates rising faster than even the most recent forecast. In fact, the NDIS now projects 741,000 participants by 2026, with numbers topping more than 1 million by 2032. Payments to participants have also increased. On average, someone who has completed 3 NDIS plans has seen their entitlements rise from $28,000 to almost $50,000. For those who've completed 5 plans, average payments have tripled from $31,000 to $94,000.
We need to understand what is the root cause of that escalation in price.
As prices have risen, NDIS figures reveal work participation rates have fallen across multiple age groups, while families and carers are engaging with the community far less than they'd like to. And in a worrying trend, when it comes to how those carers and families rate their own health, data shows it's gone backwards.
Okay, hello. Thank you. How are you? Come in.
Linda Reynolds was the former NDIS minister.
There were 2 statistics when I became minister that horrified me when I put them together. The first one was that they do an annual assessment of all participants' functionality. And so that means how functional are they? Are they increasing in functionality, which means the scheme is a success because we are making them more able in terms of doing the things that they want to do in life, or more disabled, less functional. And every year since 2017, the surveys have reported that people are saying every year, by disability and also by the year they joined, every year and cohort, they are getting less functional. So if you think about that, this is either the largest failure of public policy in our nation's history and the most expensive, because we're making people worse, or there is something else going on. And when I put that chart with the chart of people's packages, so every year people's packages on average are going up significantly. So when you put those two over a chart, we've set up the scheme so that there's an incentive now for people to report they're getting worse, and that way then their packages go up. So that's one of the structural issues I think we have to look at.
David Carey says the issue reflects the fact the scheme was established too quickly.
The problem was there was no review done on the trial to see what works, what doesn't work, what would work better at scale, what not to do at scale. There was no review period at all. We just flicked on a Friday, last day of trial, Monday the trial was over and we're in a new scheme.
One of the familiar catch cries is that the NDIS has become the only lifeboat in the ocean, with the states more than happy to see the federal government pick up the increased tab, no matter the cost. And they can afford to, because in a rush to have a political win, the Gillard government agreed to cap state contributions. Budget papers show this year the states and territories will contribute $10.5 billion to the scheme based on old estimates, leaving the federal government to find ever more money. The scheme also doesn't have to report directly to a single minister, nor worry about a budget. In establishing the NDIS, the Gillard government also did away with another crucial recommendation intended to run in tandem. It was a national injury insurance scheme. It, advocates say, would have helped alleviate some of the pressure. The biggest criticism, though, are fuzzy eligibility rules which make the NDIS a nest of confusion and open to exploitation, which Sky News will explain tomorrow. That and the role of the new minister, Bill Shorten. Jonathan Lee, Sky News.